Okay, we're in a different section. If I can find it, bring it up. Okay, that's not it. And neither is that. There we go. Right, I got too many windows open here. Right in standard forms, we got 2 over 3i, 5 over 9i, and so on. Okay, so that's what we're going to be looking at. Alright, so we'll just start over here and label this number 1. So we have 2 over 3i. Hey, we want to get this now, remember, in the a plus bi form, in that standard form of a complex number. Right. Well, I think we've been doing this, except this may be something that's just too simple. What we're going to do is multiply the bottom by I and the top by I. You could also think of it as doing this. 0 plus I, which is actually equal to I. You know, if you wanted to think of it that way. Yeah. You know, we've been saying we multiply through by the conjugate, but all you have to do actually here is just go I over I. Right. So we end up with 2I over, now I times I is I squared. We'll go ahead and just write it I squared. But remember that I squared is equal to negative 1, so we have 2I over 3 times negative 1. Of course, we're going to want to take that negative 1 and bring it out front. So we have 2/3 I. How's that? 2/3 I. Ooh, yeah, negative 2/3 I. Okay, let's look at number 2. We're moving right along. Alright, so this time you should try doing this one on your own. Alright, so multiply the bottom by I and the top by I. What do we get? We get 5I over, of course this is going to be I squared, which is negative 1, so we'll just bring that negative out front. And really, we probably want to write it like this. Bringing the I out just like that. Negative 5/9 I. Okay. Alright, and this is going to be 3 of this section here. Alright, something a little bit more difficult. 1 plus 2I over 2I. Alright, so we're going to multiply. What are we going to do? We got to get a real number down here, so it's easy. We just multiply the bottom by I and the top by I. We're going to need to put a parentheses around the top though. Okay, because you got to remember, we got to distribute this across. So this becomes I plus 2I squared over 2I squared. Okay, so we have I plus 2 times, this is going to be, remember, I squared is negative 1 over 2 times negative 1. And of course, cleaning this up, so this is going to end up being negative 2 plus I. We'll write that in the standard form. And then we have negative 2 down here in the denominator. Now this can mess a lot of people up, these negatives here. What we're going to want to do is take this negative out front. Okay, take it out front. Up here we have negative 2 plus I. It's over 2. Alright. And then what we'll want to do is distribute this negative across inside here. So we're going to have 2 minus I. My 2's are looking like I's. Okay, and then what we'll do is we will break this up to 2 over 2 minus a half I. Of course, we can reduce that down to 1 minus a half I. And we are done with that. Well, it seemed like a lot of work going on there, didn't it? Seemed like it. Okay. Let's see, what do we got over here? GoToMath.com. Alright, so we got 1 minus, actually, let me label this. This is 4 believe that was 4, wasn't it? 2, 3, 4, yeah. So we have 1 minus 7i over 20i. 20i. So we're going to multiply, get rid of this I here, we're going to multiply the top by I and the bottom by I. Right. So we end up with I minus 7i squared over 20 times I squared. Alright, so we have I minus 7 times negative 1 over, and this is negative 1 now, so 20 times negative 1. Alright, we got to clean this thing up. So we have I plus 7 over negative 20. Now we want to take this negative 20 out front, or I'm sorry, well, you could think of it that way too if you want. You could write it like this, I suppose, factoring out the, well, that's not standard form. I guess we better write this thing in standard form. Okay, so negative 1 over 20 times I is negative 1 over 20 I, and then negative 1 over 20 times 7 is negative 7 over 20, as I just about said I there. Alright, but we want to write it in the standard form. The standard form, right? The real part first. Negative 7 over 20, right? And then minus 1 over 20i. Bam. Bam, bam, thank you, ma'am. Okay, so hopefully you have got this stuff down. You know, here's the idea: for you just to watch this stuff and learn it, you don't even have to write anything down. That means I'm doing my job, and especially if you can remember it. However, I don't suggest that technique of learning. You need to try to get as many of your senses involved when it comes to learning math, because it's easily forgotten. I promise. It is easily forgotten. And that's just because you're not getting all your senses involved, trying to connect it with other different types of memories, all that. Right, we're just cleaning up the whiteboard here. And what are we doing now? I think we're gonna do one more of these, and then we're gonna do something a little different. Not much more different. Okay, so we have 1 minus 4i. 1 minus 4i squared minus 5. We're going to want to simplify this expression. Okay, we want to simplify the expression, and then plus 10. Okay, so the idea here is to simplify this expression. So what we'll want to do is go ahead and square this thing out. So we have 1 minus, I don't know what happened there. In fact, I'm not sure what happened, period. Okay, so we have 1 minus 4i times 1 minus 4i. I'm going to go ahead and distribute this across. So we have 20. Right, we have this minus 5 times 4 is negative 20, or minus 20. Negative 5 times, that's going to be plus 10i, and then plus 10. Okay, but we still need to multiply this thing out. So 1 times 1 is 1. 1 times negative 4 is negative 4i. Negative 4i times 1 is negative 4i, and negative 4i times negative 4i is plus 16i squared minus 20 plus 10i plus 10. Okay, I should be writing equal signs here, I guess. Alright, so we got 1 minus 8i plus, now you know what, this is negative, this is I squared, so that becomes negative 1, so that's going to make that a negative 16. So let's just go ahead write minus 16 here, and then we have minus 20, and then what do we got here? We got okay, we just rewrite plus 10i and then plus 10. All right. Now let's look at all the real parts. And you know what? Let's just use a different color because I hadn't been using any different colors lately. I normally like to do that. Okay, so we want to add all the real parts up. So we've got 1 minus 16 is negative 15. And then negative 15 minus 20 is 20, 35. 30, let's see, negative 35 plus 10 is negative 25. Am I right on that deal? I hope so. Alright, minus 25. And now looking at the real parts, we got negative 8i, 10i, so that's going to be 2i. Okay, well, that's just 2i. Bam, there it is. There we go. There we go. Okay. Alright, so here's the deal. This is where we're actually heading towards, and that's solving polynomial equations. And some polynomial equations, they don't have real solutions, but they will have a solution. It's guaranteed, and that is that if they don't have a real solution, then there will be a complex solution hiding out somewhere. Now, I'm not actually writing equal to 0 here, but that's where we're actually getting at. What we are given, we are actually given the solution x is equal to 1 minus I if we were to set this equal to 0. And we're going to show that by just plugging 1 minus I in squared minus 2 times 1 minus I plus 2. And you know what? I'm going to leave this kind of as an exercise, and you come up with that, and it should be equal to 0. Okay? So that's actually a solution. This has a degree of 2, and what that actually means is there are 2 solutions. Okay, there are 2 solutions, and so this is like solution 1 and solution 2, and see if you can figure out what solution 2 actually is. Okay, all right, so that's left as an exercise. I mean, what good's math without exercises, right? Alright, I'll let you figure that out. Okay. I think the last part of this, okay, so we're going to go back to, remember this equation, right? Negative 1. And we determined, we came up with this number called I squared, which is equal to negative 1. In other words, I is a solution to this equation right here. Is basically what's going on. Okay. Okay. Now here's something we're going to need to know. All right. First off, I is equal to the square root of negative 1, and I squared is equal to negative 1. What about I cubed? What's I cubed equal to? Well, let's take a look at that over here. What we can do is we can use these two right here. I squared, or I cubed, I mean, can be written as, let's see, written as 2 plus 1. Okay, up here in the power, we could rewrite that as 2 plus 1. And this can actually be rewritten as I squared times I to the first power. Well, we know what I squared is, right? It's negative 1. And of course, this is I to the first power, and I to the first power is just I, right? Okay, which is actually just I. Now, we're not going to write the square root of negative 1 here. We're going to keep everything in terms of just I. So we just go ahead and drop down the I here. Right? And so what does this become? Well, this becomes negative I. So you see I cubed is negative I. Alright, what about I to the fourth power? Well, this can actually be written as 2 times, or let's do 2 plus 2. Alright, 2 plus 2. Okay. So this is I squared times I squared, but we know that I squared is negative 1 and that I squared is negative 1. And negative 1 times negative 1, let's put a parentheses around these. Negative 1 times negative 1 is just a positive 1, right? And this is, what is this? This is, yeah, I to the 4th, so it's just a positive 1. Okay, what about I to the 5th? I to the 5th. Well, I to the 5th can be written, so we know what I to the 4th is, right? We know what I to the 4th is. It's just 1. Okay, just 1. All right, so we got, what do we got here? We got I to the 5th. So we're going to write this as I to the 4th plus 1, which can be written as I to the 4th times I. And what is I to the 4th? I to the 4th is 1, and 1 times I is just I. You see that? Let's start up over here. What about I to the 6th? I to the 6th. Well, we know what I to the 5th is. I to the 5th is I, right? Times, and see, we can break this up as I to the 6th plus 1, and then of course that would just be I, but then what is this equal to? This is equal to what? I times I is I squared, which is actually negative 1. See that? Now take a wild guess what I to the 7th is going to be. What do you think I to the 7th is going to be? Right? That's an I, not a 2. That looks like an I. So what's going to end up happening here is this thing's going to end up, this is cyclic as we keep going, I to the 8th, I to the 9th. It's just going to continue to repeat. And all the possibilities are negative 1, negative I, 1, and I. And then it goes back and repeats again, as you can see here, negative 1, then it'll be negative I, then 1, and then I. Okay? So that's something that we needed to, talk about, because now what we've got going on is we got something going on. If I can figure out what problem we're doing here. I think it's I to the 18th, I to the 67th, and I to the 29th. Oh my goodness. Let's see. Guess we're on another page. Oh, I to the 32nd. Write that down. Okay, so we're going to be looking at I to the 32nd. That's all right. So what is I to the 32nd? Well, we don't want to have to go through, man. There's a lot of stuff to go through here. What you're going to see on the test is going to be I raises some giant number up here, and then you're going to have to like do this problem in about probably 1 minute. Okay, so the best thing to do here is take what we learned up there. So for example, let's see here, I to the I'm trying to think here, I to the 32nd. Okay, 8 times 4, no, 8 times 4 is 24. Okay, what are some things that are 32? 8 times, let's see, 9 times, okay, because I'm going to work this one out just a little bit different here. Okay, 32, let's see, 16 times 2 is 32. I don't know, we'll look at that. So let's do 2 here, times 16. Okay, 2 times 16, yeah. Okay, now we can rewrite this as I squared raised to the 16th power. You see that? I squared raised to the 16th, but what is I squared? Well, it's negative 1. And so what is negative 1 raised to an even power? That's just going to be 1. Right? Raised to a even power should be actually should be 1. Yep. There, we could have done it differently, but I think that's probably good enough. Okay, what about, let's see, what do we got next? We got I to the 18th, I believe. I to the 18th. Yep. Okay, let's look at this one. So let's say we had 16 plus 2, 16, 17, 18, right? In the power, we can actually break this up as I to the 16th times I squared. Yeah. And then, of course, this one right here can be broken down to, let's say, I to the 4th times 4 times, now what is this? This is just negative 1. Let's just write that there. What the heck, right? Let's just do that. Okay, this is I to the 4th, and it's all raised to the 4th power. Okay, and then we got this negative 1 here. So what is I to the 4th? Remember what I to the 4th was over here, was just 1. I to the 4th was just 1. So we end up with 1 raised to the 4th power times negative 1. So this just becomes negative 1. This just becomes negative 1. That was I to the 18th. All right. And what do we got here? I to the 67th. Okay, so this can actually be written as I to the 64. Let's see, plus 2. Plus 1, 64, 65, 66. Yeah, 67. This can actually be rewritten as I to the 64th times I squared times I. Right. And I to the 64th is, let's see, 4 times 16. You could say I to the 4th times 16. This is a negative 1. Let's just go ahead and put that in there. And then this guy right here can be written as I to the 4th raised to the 16th power and I to the 4th, what do we say I to the 4th was? We said that it was 1, didn't we? And of course we're just going to end up getting negative I in this problem. Negative I. Okay. Alright, the next one is I to the 29th. I to the 29th. So I'm going to write this one, let's say, as I to the 24th plus 5. Okay, this up in the power. That's going to make that a 29. So we can break this up as I24 times I to the 5th, right, is equal to, this can be broken up, let's say, to, what could that be broken up to? I to the 24, 8 times 3. 8 times 3. I don't know. It can be, whatever. Alright. I'm going to let's leave that as an exercise, but I'm going to tell you that the answer should be I to the 24. See, 8 times I to the 29th. Yeah. Anyway. Ooh, I got an error. Yeah, so just break this stuff up and then just go from there. That should be the final answer. Maybe I better work this one out. I to the, how do we want to do this? What is this? 24. 8 times 3. 8 times 3 is 24, right? I to the 5th equals, wait a minute, why don't we do this? I to the 3rd raised to the 8th times I to the, did we do I to the 5th? Let's look up here what we already did up here. That's negative I and I. Negative I and I. I'm run out of room on here. I'm going to tell you what, let's just work up here. So this becomes negative I. That's not really helping me out here. To the 8th times I. That's just going to make that a positive. That's a negative raised to an even number, so that becomes positive. That's I to the 8, which is actually 2 times 4. This is I squared. You know, this is really going way too long. Okay, so I squared is negative 1. Negative 1 to the 4th is going to be a positive 1. So we end up with just I. Yeah, as the answer there. Okay. Alright, wow. That's too much. Too much for me. What are we doing? Let's finish this thing off. We're done. We're finished. Hopefully you got a basics here of adding and subtracting and multiplying and dividing complex numbers. That's kind of what we wanted to basically do. Run some examples off on that. So we're over here at gotomath.com, I guess, or you're at my YouTube channel. Not sure where you are, but there you go. All right, algebra, complex numbers, and I'll see you in the next section.